Have you guys ever had the Kodiak cakes? It's a boxed pancake mix. You can also buy pre-made pancakes or frozen, I think they're frozen waffles, and they're touted for being like whole grain and packed with protein. Well, I just found out they make a brownie mix, and I went ahead and tried it. This is how it turned out. Hey there, welcome to the Recipes with Ray podcast. So, I purchased the Kodiak protein-packed brownie mix, chocolate fudge. These have 8 grams of protein per serving, and you make this in a 9x9 baking pan, and it's supposed to serve 12. So, depending on how large or small you want your brownies to be. And this pack of brownie mix has a relatively quality looking ingredient list. So I'll read it for you real quick. There's cane sugar, semi-sweet chocolate, stuff in parentheses, vital wheat gluten, cocoa powder, 100% whole grain wheat flour, whey protein concentrate. So that's why there's a higher protein content in these versus normal brownies. There's 100% whole grain oat flour, milk protein concentrate, natural flavor, sea salt, baking powder, and that's it. And then for making them, calls for 2 eggs, half cup of melted butter, 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and 2 tablespoons of water. So nothing crazy. It's pretty similar to preparing a normal brownie mix. So, of course, with these being protein packed, I had some doubts about how they would turn out because I don't know about you, but I have yet to find a brownie recipe that tastes better than a store-bought boxed mix. And if you're going to go and try and make the store-bought ones healthier, typically that doesn't always go well, taste-wise. So with these, I made them in a 9x9 and they came out, they baked fine. They looked like normal brownies. In a 9x9 baking pan, they were pretty thin, like 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch thick, whereas I'm used to brownies being a little thicker than that. The recipe says to cook them for 22 to 24 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean. So I started with 22. Thinking that, I don't know what I was thinking. With a recipe, if it gives me a time range, I like to start with the lowest time range, even though personally I'm someone who enjoys my brownies being underdone. I like them to be a little fudgy in the middle. So at 22 minutes, these came out and they were done. So I was a little disappointed at that, but they were done. They weren't overdone. They were not dry, which I was happy with. With these, this mix, there were small pieces of like chocolate chunks in there, not a lot. So I ended up adding about 3 to 4, it was probably about 4 ounces of chopped chocolate chunks. So I had a mixture of milk chocolate and dark chocolate that I added in to the mix in addition to the chocolate chunks that were already in it. And even with that, I thought that with the extra chocolate pieces being in the batter that it would have increased my cook time overall. But yet again, at 22 minutes, they were done. So then it was time to give them a taste test. They had a nice density to them. I am someone who likes a nice dense brownie. I don't care for cakey brownies. I like that nice dense mouthfeel. So they had that nice dense mouthfeel, that nice chew to them. They're definitely less sweet than a traditional boxed brownie. The chocolate flavor was subtle, and I think that goes hand in hand with them being less sweet. So the chocolate, it was definitely chocolatey, don't get me wrong. I don't think I could tell that these were made with whole grain flour. Like it wasn't noticeable to me. Like if you compare white bread to 100% whole wheat bread, you can tell the difference, but they did a really good job of getting the flavor to be consistent with a brownie on the flour perspective. There weren't a lot of chocolate chunks. Even with the 4 ounces of chocolate that I added, it could have used more chocolate chunks. So they don't tout this as being a chocolate chunk brownie mix. They just say chocolate fudge. So I can't hold that against them that I don't think they had enough chocolate pieces, but that was just my personal preference. One thing that was noticeable is when I eat traditional brownies, I just want to eat them all. It's like you have one and it's like a potato chip. You just want another because they're just so sweet and fudgy and chocolatey and just have a whole bunch with a big glass of milk. But with these, I think because they were slightly less sweet, it satisfies that chocolate craving. The texture, the dense texture was satisfying. And so overall, it satisfied the craving without you wanting to eat the whole pan. And I think that is pretty common if you start using less refined products. So if you use like raw cane sugar, or if you use like maple syrup or honey versus your traditional white baking sugar, like those more natural, less refined ingredients seem to be more satisfying. That is at least in my experience. So the perk with these is you have 8 grams of protein per serving. If you cut your 9x9 pan into 12 brownies, 2 grams of fiber, which isn't a whole lot, but it's more than a traditional boxed brownie mix. And the ingredient list, you just have basically everything you can pronounce, everything you can buy straight from your baking aisle or your grocery store at least, and put these together. So they're more wholesome, and sometimes we kind of just let nutrition go by the wayside when we eat sweets, we eat dessert, but with these, you get a little bit of both. Satisfy your sweet tooth, satisfy your chocolate craving, satisfy that texture that you expect from brownies with a little bit of extra something in the protein and fiber department. Next time, I would probably add more chocolate chunks, but that's just personal preference. And I would probably cook these in an 8x8 baking dish so that the brownies are thicker. And then since they are thicker, I would probably still start at the 22-minute time and then just see what doneness level they are at that point and add more time if it's needed. Would I get these again? Maybe for myself. If I were bringing it to a gathering, like a barbecue or a cookout, these could pass. But I might opt for the traditional Duncan Hines, Betty Crocker, Pillsbury. Do Pillsbury have a brownie mix? One of your traditional brand brownie mixes. Also, the Kodiak brand is a little more expensive, which I would expect when you're using more whole ingredients. It tends to be more expensive when you just stick with whole ingredients. You have fewer fillers, and they are marketed as being healthier, so there's probably an upcharge for that. Have you guys tried the Kodiak brownie mix? If you're listening on YouTube, drop me a comment. If you're listening on podcast, you can always leave me a rating and a review and let me know within your review. If you've listened this far and you've enjoyed this episode of the Recipes with Ray podcast, give this video a thumbs up if you're listening on YouTube. Be sure to follow or subscribe for more content. And if you missed the last Recipes with Ray podcast episode, I will leave that here on screen or down below in the show notes for you to click on, and I will see you guys there.